Hey guys, so today we got information on the Hanmoon Ultimate skills coming to Blade and Soul on December 6th. Basically, I will leave a link in the description to the video showcasing these skills so you can actually see them. They did make a video for them right here, but personally, it's more of a trailer and not actual gameplay. So I will leave a link to actual gameplay of it, and if you want to see the trailer, you can watch that too. But basically, let's just look over these and see how they work. So. One thing here they're stating is once you actually reach level 55, you don't have to do any quests or anything like that, so that's nice. There's no annoying quest line that you have to do. You basically just reach level 55 and then you immediately get the Hanmoon Ultimate skills. Basically what you do is you have a blue bar and it charges up over time during combat. And once it's full, you can use one of the ultimate abilities. So we're just going to quickly look over each class's ultimate skills that they're getting. So first one is Assassin. They get 3 different ones. Blink Step, so basically they're describing it as a quickly dashing forward up to 5 times while resisting incoming attacks. So that's most likely, you're dashing forward 5 times and you get an iframe for each dash, I'm assuming. So that sounds pretty strong, to be honest. Next thing is the Shadow Step. So how that works is basically turns you invisible, and then you're allowed to use the Viper Fang. So you have to use this first in order to use Viper Fang. And Viper Fang is just basically a really strong DPS skill. So it's just an ultimate skill that's very powerful. Nothing more about that. Blade Dancer, they get 2. So they get Giga Sword and Black Hole. So Giga Sword basically is like a big windmill of blades that you spin in a circle, and just does a huge amount of damage. Very, very powerful. And then Black Hole is pretty interesting because basically it's like a giant hole that puts everyone into like a phantom grip, basically restrains them. So it's basically like a mass phantom grip for like a whole circle area of anything that you trap in there. So it is pretty cool. They're also describing that it regains Harmon focus for all your party members. So a really good utility skill, to be honest. So that's going to be really good in parties. Next thing we got is the Blade Master. So they have Storm Surge and Lightning Surge. So Storm Surge is basically just like a flurry of blades. They're red and blue, so I'm assuming fire and ice looking. And basically they're describing they do a high amount of damage, and they resist up to 3 attacks during the use of the skill. So basically you do a ton of DPS and you have iframes during it, so very powerful. And then Lightning Surge, you dash forward up to 5 times. So it's basically like Lightning Flash, the skill that Blade Dancer has, but you can dash up to 5 times, so it's going to be a lot of dashing around for Blade Masters, so that's pretty interesting. Like to see that more. Destroyer, they get 2 skills, At's Frenzy and Eye of the Storm. So At's Frenzy is just a flurry of attacks. Also, you're invulnerable for a short amount of time, so basically you're spamming attacks during At's Frenzy and you get some iframes too. Or maybe you don't want to call them iframes, but invulnerable, kind of the same thing. But also Eye of the Storm. So this one, it says you throw your ats at a target and you deal damage to all enemies within 5 meters over time, and you stun them. And you reduce their movement speed, so this is very interesting skill. So it's basically a stun and you give them a movement impairment, so going to be pretty strong for maybe in PvP or like faction versus faction content. Next thing we got is the Force Master. So we got Sacred Flames and Glacier. So Glacier is basically like a giant ice and fire dragons that combine together. You basically fly up in the air and you shoot them together, and it just does a high amount of damage. And then Glacier, it creates a large area of ice around you and just kind of puts all the enemies inside it into a kind of like a stun, I guess you could say. So that's Glacier and Sacred Flames. Then we got the Gunslinger. So the Gunslinger has Flare and Snipe. So Flare basically puts everyone that's inside the bright light, just puts them into a blind, so it's basically just a daze for a couple seconds. And then interesting enough, they have basically an ability called Snipe, and it allows them to use a sniper rifle, and they gain a lot of range, and it does a good amount of damage. So it's basically basically just like a sniper rifle. So you gain a ton of range and you just do a lot of damage. It's actually really cool looking, and I'll leave a link for that one too, so you guys check it out. Really, really cool. Kung Fu Master, you get 8 Talons and Aftershock. So 8 talons, you basically dash to your enemy and you do a high amount of damage and you get iframes during the attack. And then aftershock, you jump to your enemy and it says you smash the ground while dealing damage and slowing their movement speed. And it increases your own movement speed and it regains Hamun focus. Also launches them into the air, so not really good for raids or dungeons, I would say, but definitely might be for like 1v1s or 3v3s. Next thing is Soul Fighter. So they have Soul Surge and Harmonize. So they're just starting Soul Surge. Basically, you release a flurry of attacks, and it does a ton of damage, so it's basically just a high DPS skill. And then Harmonize is describing as basically you channel your inner chi and you heal yourself in your parties. It also increases your maximum health and defense and for your party members. So this is going to be really good for dungeons and raids because heals everyone and increases their health and their defense for the whole party. So it's going to be a really useful skill for raids. And then we got 2 more. So Summoner, they get 3. They get Rumble Queen, Besties, and Party Time. So Rumble Queen, basically you summon the Queen Rumblebee, and it does like a huge amount of damage, and you regain Hamun focus for each enemy you hit. Besties, your familiar, will basically resist attacks for a short amount of time, and it'll allow you to use Party Time. So this is a chain skill, so you use Besties, and then you can use Party Time. And Party Time will allow your familiar to daze all the enemies around it, and it will allow your allies to resist attacks. So this is actually really powerful. Basically, summoners get a huge DPS skill, and they get iframes for their familiar and their party. Last but not least is the Warlock, and they get Enthrall and Necro Chains. So Enthrall basically snares a group of enemies, and it deals an amount of damage. So basically, it just puts all enemies inside it snared, and then just does a lot of damage. So it's basically a DPS skill. And then Necro Chains, basically it shadows your enemy, and then grants your allies Hamun focus for each attack inflicted. So basically, you grab a target, and then when your allies attack it, they gain a lot of Hamun focus back. So this would be really good, basically, when your team needs to gain Hamun focus fast. So those are basically all the ultimate skills. As I said, I will leave a link in the description so you can actually see them all. All of them seem pretty strong. Every class seems like they get a very high DPS skill, and then they usually get some type of iframe or CC skill. So definitely going to be looking out for that. Really powerful. I'm really excited for my Blade Dancer skills. But those are the ultimate skills, and be there on December 6th, so look out for it. And thank you guys for watching.